Yo, what's up? Welcome to Beyond the Box Score here. Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. We are going to talk about DJ Moore. We're going to talk about this terrible Bills offense, although not nearly as terrible as you might think. Tyrone Tracy with a big game. What kind of value does Nick Chubb have? And what is going on with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb? I think CeeDee Lamb is wide receiver 19 per game. Now I'm going to bring in Dan Schneier and Jacob Gibbs. Dan, before the show even started, told me that I got a nice haircut. You must be in a good mood with that Snuggie you're wearing.
I am wearing the world's largest Giants jersey. Won it. Didn't realize how big it was until I put it on for the first time. And I plan to wear this on Sunday night when I go to the Giants game. So I have to figure out between now and then how to shrink it in some way. But look, it's time to show off some pride. The Giants finally played a prideful game yesterday, a real win against a 3-1 team on the road in a tough environment. So I got to be happy while it lasts. And you, my friend Adam, must be on cloud 9 because you also got that insane Miami Hurricanes comeback.
And the Yankees.
Did you make it up? Did you stay up for the whole game?
Oh, yeah. I was up till 3 on Saturday night. And then we had a busy day on Sunday. And then, someone who was up that late didn't really want the Steelers-Cowboys game to be delayed almost an hour and a half. But, it is what it is. I'm feeling good. I'm ready to go. Jacob is here. Jacob, hello.
Hello.
I'm going to just address something real quick. Gotten a lot of feedback. What happened to your YouTube stream? Why were you airing something political? Yeah, look, we have no idea what happened. We're gonna address. Our account was hacked. We're gonna address it. We don't do politics here. We don't endorse any politics, and we're working to resolve the issue. So just letting you know, I think a lot of you realized what happened, but in case you're confused, that was a hack. All right.
Hacked.
Yep, we did. Dallas 20, Pittsburgh 17. Bad week for the Philadelphia Eagles. The NFC East went 3-0 while they were on bye, but great win for the Cowboys last night in pretty exciting fashion. And the Steelers, again, they just have these slow starts offensively. And based on what we heard on the broadcast, it's definitely a possibility that Russell Wilson is going to be their starting quarterback next week. But Dan, you want to start with Dallas or Pittsburgh takeaways?
We could start with Pittsburgh because there might be obviously the quarterback change that you just mentioned. I think it was probably Fields' worst performance of the season, at least if I did go back and look at the tape. I haven't yet. Just from what I saw on broadcast, he missed a lot of open receivers. The ball wasn't coming out fast, some really off-target throws. But what stood out to me was just the lack of snaps for George Pickens. I heard after the game, Mike Tomlin mentioned this was almost by design. They're trying to get the most out of him on the snaps they use him for. Look, he's their best player by far on the field when they're on offense. It's not really even close. I don't like the fact that they're not using him a lot. But if they do make the decision to go to Russell Wilson, I feel like it's got to be a boost for his fantasy stock. Would you agree with that? Is that where we're at with this, just based on how many off-target throws we've seen from Fields to Pickens?
Well, I'm going to let Jacob weigh in a bit, but I did talk about this. We had one of our big topics last week was about Justin Fields, and I said, I thought he was actually playing pretty well. And I thought, Wilson might be better for Pickens because he'll throw more and he'll definitely throw more touchdowns, right? He eliminates some of that risk of rushing touchdown near the goal line. But I like this ability of Fields to improv and for Pickens to do it with him and get a big play downfield. They almost had that last night on one play. The snap counts were weird. He had played over 73% of the snaps, I think, in 3 straight games. So, yeah, that needs to go back up. I think overall it's probably better if Wilson's there. But to be fair to Fields, Pickens was having a solid start to the season. If you remove the Denver game, Surtain just shuts everyone down. He was fine. I was comfortable starting him. He was started in 80% of leagues or something like that. So this was a bad night. But I will be fine with Pickens probably either way. I guess Wilson probably a little bit of an upgrade because you're just going to get more pass attempts.
For the record, I will say for the Steelers' sake, I think it will be worse if they turn from Fields to Russell Wilson. I think Wilson is almost definitely shot as a quarterback. And I think, look, did Fields lose that game for them last night? No, their defense lost that game for them. Dak was throwing the ball all over the field all game. So that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas really did move the ball pretty well. They were bad in the red zone. They had a couple of bad turnovers. They had the fumble. They had the interception. They could have, I think, handled this game a little bit better. And Najee is just like, he has been so bad with such a great opportunity.
His burst doesn't look there at all this year, and it looked like he had it back to some extent when he was in the preseason, a little bit like what we saw in college, but just not there right now in the regular season. They need Warren back for some kind of boost there.
Jacob, what do you want to tell us about the Cowboys? It was definitely the best game for Rico Dowdle. I have a lot of numbers on Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, but Jalen Tolbert, I think I saw was your tweet about Tolbert versus Lamb the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, last 4 weeks, Jalen Tolbert is like tracking right with CeeDee Lamb. He had more targets than him in this game. Pretty crazy stuff. Tolbert was somebody you guys might remember I was a huge fan of coming into the league, and he didn't do anything with the opportunity early on. I think it just took some time. He came from a small school for him to refine his game, and he's showing up at some interesting metrics so far this year. When I've watched him, he's been open a lot. He's winning a lot from the slot and not so much on the perimeter, which is interesting to me. Like, I wonder if he's still not quite, like, this is something we might not want to overreact to. Like the fact that he's not winning a whole lot in man coverage situations on the perimeter does stand out to me. But overall, yeah, like really for somebody who basically nobody was drafting, really encouraging start.
10% rostered Jalen Tolbert. He had 7 catches for 87 yards on 10 targets at Pittsburgh, but last week 3 catches for 24 yards on 3 targets. I also talked about him, and he's fast. You can see the speed, and they've obviously got Brandon Cooks out for 3 more games at least. So maybe that's a few more targets for Tolbert. Meanwhile, Ferguson has 6 or 7 catches in all 3 games that he's played, the last 3 games that he's played. So it's not even a question. Jake Ferguson is a must start. All right, Lamb and Dak. Right now, Lamb is number 19 per game in PPR at wide receiver. Dak is actually QB 10 per game in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. He has the second most pass attempts in the NFL behind Geno Smith. He has, and listen to this, people might say, well, their offensive line isn't that good. And they lost Tyler Guyton last night, their left tackle. I don't know if it's serious or not. The Cowboys are giving up, according to True Media, the lowest pressure rate in the NFL by far. So I don't think we can blame the offensive line. Whether you agree with the stat or not, I don't think we can blame the offensive line. I just think that they're not good enough in the red zone. They're missing out on some opportunities. They're not really getting to the red zone that much. Last year, CeeDee Lamb led the NFL in red zone targets. Dak Prescott led the NFL in red zone pass attempts. Right. I think he's 18th now, and CeeDee Lamb has 2 red zone targets. So I don't know. I think there's a lot to like here. It's not translating into touchdowns right now. But Dan, I think they're fine. I think they're going to be fine. There's too long of a track record for me to react to 5 games. I think they're going to be just fine. What about you, Dan?
So I've seen a lot of the Cowboys, having watched their game on tape from last week against the Giants. And I think that pressure stat is a direct correlation to the fact that they're just running a lot of quick game on offense, more than they had last year. And I think part of that is a lack of trust in the offensive line with a rookie at left tackle instead of Tyrone Smith, in addition to some injuries that they've had there on the offensive line. I also think when it comes to the Lamb thing, like we saw the interaction that Lamb and Prescott had on the sideline last night. It didn't look great, but I think when I read, some lip readers got through to me that he basically was just saying, jump ball, just throw me the jump ball. And later you kind of saw that because all night the Steelers were rolling coverages to Lamb's side. They were taking away Lamb. This is what teams are going to do now against CeeDee Lamb and the Cowboys. And he tried to throw it up there in the red zone, and it was intercepted. I just don't think Dak Prescott is that kind of quarterback that's going to force it to the read if it's covered. Dak Prescott is one of the best processors in the NFL. It's basically made his entire career. He doesn't really have an incredible skill set. He's not a good scrambler. I think his arm is good, but it's not amazing. But he processes well, and that's why they run a lot of quick game, and that's why he's going to go to guys like Tolbert a lot, because Tolbert's going to get the one-on-one while Lamb's getting rolled coverage. So I don't know, man, until they kind of play a defense that's going to play like, all like a Gus Bradley type defense, or just one of these like less, I guess, game plan centric defensive coordinators that aren't going to roll coverage over Lamb. I don't know how much better it's going to get, because I don't see Dak Prescott becoming the quarterback that just jams the ball out there to these jump balls, even though Lamb can make those catches.
All right. So I guess what I would say is this, like, did I go back and watch all the tape from last year? Absolutely not. But I have to imagine they were rolling coverage on CeeDee Lamb last year too, right? And he was the best receiver in fantasy, or second, tied with Tyreek Hill.
They had to respect the run game a little more last year, I feel like.
I think the run game
it was bad, but they committed a little bit more to it. They're running so much quick game and so much more pass this year.
Well, he does need a little bit more of a target share. He's 14th in yards per target among 53 wide receivers with 25 or more targets. It's just not like, what's his target share? 20 It's 21.7%. The last 2 seasons, it's been around 29%. So I think this is what I'd say about Lamb. You look at the numbers on a per target basis, it pretty much looks exactly the same. He's just not getting quite as many targets this year, but he's still on pace for 139 targets. He had 181 last year. So he's not going to be anywhere near wide receiver 1 if he has 139 targets. But the per target numbers, the ADOT, all these types of things, they look pretty similar. Just not getting as many targets as it used to, which might be because they're getting the ball out quicker. I don't know. Overall, would anybody be surprised if CeeDee Lamb is the number 1 wide receiver from this point on?
No. We saw what happened with Brandon Ayuk this week. I think that's just a really simple corollary. Like, don't worry about CeeDee Lamb. He's one of the best receivers I've ever seen. His production versus man coverage last year was literally the best of any season during the time I had the data available. He's insane. He's going to get his.
Do you see them playing? Do you see them playing a lot more? I feel like they're playing less man coverage against the Cowboys. Like, I remember from last week, Lamb scored when the Giants played press man with Banks, and he beat him as he should. He's a great receiver, but like last night, it felt like there was fewer examples of that where he had those opportunities.
Yeah, of course. I don't think people are going to use press coverage against man or man coverage and press coverage against Lamb if they can avoid it. It was just to point out the fact that like this is truly like a Hall of Fame level talent. Like,
I'm good with that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just to wrap things up, because we have a lot more to do, it's good to see this game from Rico Dowdle. It's what we've been hoping for. He got the goal line carry at the very end of the game, and he fumbled. So who will get that goal line carry in their next opportunity against the Detroit Lions, which is a very tough matchup for running backs. I'm not sure I'm going to go back to Rico Dowdle, but if you were one of the 41% of Dowdle managers that started him, you were rewarded. Really nice touchdown catch for him, and he's obviously the guy there. All right. Beyond the box score is, you guys want to, you know what? I'll just give it to you. You can promote it, Dan Schneier.
Yeah, so Beyond the Box Score, it's a 2 show now. We have the one on Monday with me, Adam, and Jacob that you're listening to right now. And then on Thursdays, me and Jacob bring on a guest from the fantasy industry. We've had some unbelievable guests so far. Seth Walder, Matthew Berry, just to name 2. Every single week, it's been a star-studded guest show. And then we break down everything we miss on this show, things that we need time to get to. You need more time to watch the film throughout the week? Jacob and I will do that. You need more time to get the stats, to get kind of the data that Jacob will parse out through the week. We'll do that on Thursday, but we're still not going to hit everything. If you want more, you can sign up for the Fantasy Football Today newsletter. It's what Jacob does. Every single day he drops it. Every single day he comes bringing the heat. You guys can check it out. It's for free. I always say it like this. I always sell it like this. Read one of these newsletters and you won't go back. That will be it. You'll be locked in to read it every single day. And you could read it with your morning, you know what? I don't want to say that. I don't know if that's a family-friendly thing, but I don't know. No, I wasn't going to say the word. I was going to say the word DUMP, but either way, probably not the best.
Can't we just say coffee? I mean, like, don't people just?
No, I don't think your coffee, or you can do things while you're drinking your coffee, but when you're doing the other thing after the coffee, that's when you really need time to sit down, read a newsletter, and that's when I read. That's when I try to read. Well, it comes out a little bit later.
All right, great. Well, we're going to take a break on that note. That stinks. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today with news and notes.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
All right. Listen, before we get into news and notes,
yes.
Jacob said before Dan got on, Dan was very late for the mic check. It's solid 5 minutes. He said Dan's got a lot of victory laps to take. So if you'd like to take some victory laps, go for it, my friend.
I've learned over the time doing this show that I don't want to take the victory laps because there are also failures and misses, but there is one that I need to take. I don't know if this is the one that Jacob was thinking about, but it's the Tank Bigsby victory lap. I took a lot of heat last year for my Tank Bigsby takes. A lot of heat. Turns out I was a year early with Tank Bigsby. He needed a year, I guess, to understand the system. Maybe he was playing hurt last year. I don't know. But he is the most explosive runner in the entire NFL right now. And now I'm missing the stat. I lost it, but clearly, Tank Bigsby looks like the player I saw on tape at Auburn. It's just good to see it confirmed because I saw a special runner when I watched him in college, and he looks like that runner again with the Jaguars. I don't know what this, split will be rest of season, but I know for a fact they can't take Bigsby off the field. And he was in a lot of the closing situation toward the end of the game and even some third down. So I'm really excited about him moving forward.
All right. Well, I hope you're feeling good about yourself because this was a bit of a setup.
Oh no.
You do have to knock you down a peg or two. If you don't mind, Thomas Schaefer, let's roll the tape.
Oh, Schaefer with a
Sure.
horrible take here. Currently, you're not the points leader.
I mean, I think my team's a lot better than yours once I get Jordan Love back.
No team is better than mine in that.
Yeah,
league.
it is. Look at my receivers. Once the receivers come back, my team is
Let me give a
loaded.
quick overview for the listeners. And this is a super flex league where I have Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, and James Cook. Oh my God. So good.
Wow.
That has to be the best thing you've ever done here, Thomas. I think, at least since I joined the show, with the curb music just capping it off perfectly.
Yes, and for those of you who couldn't see it, that the curb music was playing over the screenshot of Thomas beating Dan by it's like 62 points.
And yet, Adam, I still outscored you by a lot this week, and most
tanking.
teams.
Congratulations! I literally set
Congrats,
my
I outscored most teams.
What'd you say? Yeah, sure. All right, good stuff. But no, honestly, every time Tank Bigsby has a good run, I actually think about you. So yeah, congratulations on that. News and notes. Aaron Rodgers does have the ankle injury. They think he's going to be fine. He's got Buffalo this week. Aiden O'Connell replaced Gardner Minshew. They haven't announced anything there. We could get a quarterback change in New England. And I have a segment in the notes today called I Watched the Miami-New England Game. You're welcome, because I did that before the show started. It wasn't that bad of a game. But the last play of the game, I mean, Jacoby Brissett throws a completion to the 11-yard line. They don't have any timeouts. Hunter Henry catches that ball with 2 seconds. You can't end the game like that. Come on. Anyway, they might make a change there. So obviously, we've been telling you for a little while, Superflex leagues, there might be a new quarterback. I don't know if that's going to be anything worth starting.
Put him behind that offensive line. That would be such a disaster.
Josh Allen, I think people are really curious why he hit his head and came back in, but we'll see if he's in the concussion protocol. I haven't heard anything. It's supposed to be fine for the Jets game. They're sticking with Deshaun Watson in Cleveland, and they're sticking with Andy Dalton for now in Carolina. Ramondre Stevenson has a leg injury. He downplayed it. They have Houston this week. Devon Achane left with the concussion going into the bye week there. Zach Moss, ankle injury, but apparently he's okay. Don't know if he's going to play this week, but it looks like Zach
back
Moss
into the game, Adam.
He did, but we said it really reminded us of Joe Mixon.
Oh yeah, that was horrible.
Right, because Mixon that ankle injury looks so bad. He comes back in, and then he's missed the last 3 games, I think.
Right.
That's almost what I was expecting for Moss, but according to what they're saying, Moss has dodged the bullet there. And Aaron Jones left with a hip injury. They're hopeful it's not too bad, and it's a good time for a bye week. Nico Collins is day-to-day with a hamstring injury. I don't know if it was Tank Dell's injury status or what, but Tank Dell played like 64% of the snaps or something. Hutchinson played more than him. I don't know what that was about, Jacob. Do you know?
Yeah, they rotated a lot. Even after Nico went down, he did have more routes than Hutchinson after Nico went down, but only by like 2 or 3.
I'm really hoping that Nico injury is nothing, because Jacob Gibbs, this is his call of 2024, and he's been unbelievable every snap he's had. But hopefully it's nothing. It's weird that it was, it's got to be something since he was ruled out immediately, and hamstrings can be tricky, but hopefully only 1 or 2 weeks maybe.
Matt LaFleur is hopeful that Romeo Doubs is going to come back and be ready to work this week. Jordan Whittington's arm was in a sling after the game, and Xavier Leggett left with a shoulder injury, but he said he expects to play next week against the Falcons. A lot of offensive line injuries. Bears, Tevin Jenkins, Dallas left tackle, Tyler Guyton, Cincinnati right tackle, Amarius Mims. That's going to put them on their 3rd string right tackle if he's out at the Giants. Colts guard Will Fries. He fractured his leg, so he's obviously out for a while, and they've got their center was out. 2 Denver offensive linemen left with injuries. They get the Chargers coming off a bye in week 6. And Carolina, this stinks. Carolina, they really upgraded their offensive line in the offseason. 2 offensive linemen left with injuries, and they get Atlanta coming up. And for defensive injuries, Cowboys suffered one with Marshawn Nealand. They lost an edge rusher. They're already obviously depleted there, and they get the Lions coming up. And Cleveland safety Grant Delpit and Denzel Ward, they both left with injuries. Pittsburgh lost a linebacker and a defensive end. Pretty much. San Francisco safety Talanoa Hufanga, wrist injury. Christian Wilkins for the Raiders. He left with a foot injury. I fire up Najee Harris next week. No, probably not. And then Javon Holland, great safety for the Miami Dolphins. He broke his hand, so he's going to miss some time. Yeah, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM, please use that bonus code FANTASY. This is a great offer. You're going to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. So here's how it works. You download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you're using the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. Okay, snap count. I feel like I've been talking a lot. Should I go through the snap counts here, or do we want to let Jacob do his advanced stats thing?
Let's let Jacob do the advanced.
All right, I like that. Dan or Jacob, your advanced metrics. You are on the clock.
All right. So I look like I listened to Creed. I'm curious what you guys think of that.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Beans with another great comment here.
Oh,
Jacob.
you look like you listen to Sublime with Rome.
Also, I have one quick comment to make before Jacob gets into this. Someone said I look like the type of guy who leaves the shopping cart next to his car. I am the total opposite of that. I walk it back every time, and I judge people who don't. I think the shopping cart theory is a very good way to kind of decide in society who has a good heart and who does not.
Great call. It's a mean thing to do.
You don't leave the cart. And then I saw like one video of like some mom like leaving it there and then yelling at the other person, like, I have my kid. It's like, okay, put the kid back in the cart, walk the cart back.
Oh, no. Your kid has to be a certain age for that. Cause this is my experience. If I ever do leave the cart, it's a kid emergency situation. So you have to, I can leave the kid in the cart. If it's like a empty-ish parking lot, I have eyes on the car, in the car, not the cart.
No, I said the cart. You walk back. You can't leave in the car. That's crazy.
Oh, you put the kid. Oh, you're saying put the kid.
You come back with the cart, roll the cart back, then you carry the kid back over to the car.
Oh, you could do that. It's a little annoying.
You could do that.
A lot of you, but no. And you got to park near the spot where you put the shopping cart, right? Like, don't get the spot next to the store. Park where you got to. This is a pro tip. It's an easy one, but park near where the shopping carts go. All right, Jacob. Can you take me higher? And yes, just park next to the cart, right? Exactly. Can you take me higher and give me some advanced metrics?
All right, Brian Thomas Jr. have to start there. I almost feel guilty with Nico Collins is your guy, Victory Lap, Brian Thomas Jr. It's like, I just look at these guys and it's like, well, he's insane. Like, he's going to dominate out there. And like, yeah, he does. It's pretty easy. Doesn't really have anything to do with me, but he's awesome. He ran more routes than Christian Kirk this week, was only 2 routes behind Gabe Davis. So that's exciting because we see this with rookies. He's been like the clear third for most of the year, and he's starting to get more and more involved where he can play basically any play for them. Hopefully he'll eventually be the leading route runner because he could really put up some crazy numbers because his per route data is nutso. And obviously having the long catch this week helps that, but it was already really good. So this is per Austin Gale. The highest yard per route run average for rookie wide receivers in weeks 1 through 5 since 2000. Greg Jennings, 3.28. Jamar Chase, 2.98. Brian Thomas Jr., 2.78. Justin Jefferson, Puka Nacua just below that. So that on a per route, like yardage creation efficiency, that's kind of what we're looking at here. He's 5th in the entire NFL in yards per route run. And I wanted to also bring up that he's 9th in first downs per route run. And I think that's important because it's a way to like alleviate for the big play inflation. So like on that big, reception, that's just 1 first down, So he's still top 10 in that. He's been really, really good. And I think the role is only going to increase.
Question. We had a Marvin Harrison or Brian Thomas. Well, we had a buy or sell. Brian Thomas Jr. is the 2nd best rookie wide receiver rest of season. So what do you think? How would you rank the top 3?
I would probably still take Marvin over him. I love BTJ. He's obviously awesome, but at the same time, Trevor Lawrence has definitely some limitations. This was the perfect matchup for him. I guess I'll take a victory lap on that. Is that I lined up this cover 3, most cover 3 heavy defense in the NFL, Gus Bradley's Colts, and that's by far the best defense for Trevor Lawrence to be facing. And we saw him play really well. He's like bottom of the league against any other coverage type. So single safety looks like that are going to be good for BTJ, but I don't know how many of those he's going to run into. Honestly, this Colts defense is pretty unique.
And I just want to add one thing about the Jaguars. Christian Kirk, 4 catches, 88 yards on 4 targets. He played only 53% of the snaps. And he played 72% or more in each of the first 4 games. But I looked at the Jaguars' percentage of 3 or more receiver sets in their 5 games, and this was by far their lowest. It was like 62%. And the week before that, week 4, was their lowest. So it's gone down 2 straight weeks. I don't know if it's going to go any lower than 62%.
Game script is key in that they finally had some decent game script.
I don't know. I don't know if that's what it is. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just a fluky thing. Maybe it's because they were playing a different type of defense. I'm not sure, but that really hurt. I didn't know at the time when we did the show last night, Christian Kirk, 4 targets. It looks like a loser, but he just wasn't on the field that much. And I don't know what the deal is with that.
I think it could have something to do with Tank Bigsby too. This might be reaching, but Bigsby's been more healthy the last couple games, and they've been specific with the types of runs that they call. They've been using a lot more zone rushing for ETN and a lot more man gap power concepts for Bigsby. So it's possible they want bigger formations for those plays to run the style that they think works with Bigsby, and obviously it is working.
All right, sorry to cut you off there. Go ahead, sir. Keep going.
All right, I will take a victory lap on this player evaluation because it's not quite so obvious. That's Josh Downs. This has been one of my favorite players since I've watched him play. He's so fun. And he had 12 targets this week, 29% target share on the year in 3 games. In the 3 games that he's played, he's outscored Michael Pittman, 43 PPR points to 39 for Pittman. On the year, listen to this. Target per route run rate, 35% for Downs, 34.7% for Malik Neighbors. First down per route rate, 15% for Downs, 12.7% for Neighbors. That's insane.
That is insane.
He doesn't get a full, assortment of routes because he pretty much only plays in 3 receiver sets. So his per route stuff is always going to look really good because they're kind of intentional about getting the ball when he's on the field. Also, Joe Flacco helps this a lot. I'm not saying he's going to be this type of player all year. When Anthony Richardson's in there, it's just like, look at how good this guy is. It's really, really noteworthy. And for Dynasty, and if anything were to happen to Michael Pittman, then I think he would probably be on the field quite a bit because he was pretty good as a perimeter receiver in college. He was like a really, really good contested catch receiver at North Carolina. Like, he's not just a small slot guy. He's a dog. Drake London. He is dominating, obviously, and Darnell Mooney is as well. And I just wanted to point out that, this Atlanta offense, we had talked about this last week, Adam. They were near the very bottom of the league in plays. They were first in offensive plays this week. So regression hit in a big way. And we saw that all the underlying stuff just came flooding to the surface in this huge point total for these guys with more plays. And I think that the offense has a chance to be pretty good, and they play super fast. They're I think only the Cowboys are playing at a faster pace of play than the Falcons on the year. So over the past month, and I'm removing the week 1 game. I know we don't like to do that Azer stat, whatever. But the week 1 game was...
You should. Yeah.
One game was ridiculous. That wasn't real football.
As the king of the Azer stats, you have to get my permission.
Since then, and this is on a per route basis, which I do think is important, that it's not just taken into, last week they had 500 passing yards and a ton of plays, and that's not going to be normal. But on a per route basis, Drake London, 31% target per route run rate, 2.55 yards per route run. That is elite stuff. That's over the past 5 or 6 years, there have only been 6 players that have averaged a 30% target per route run rate, and it's all wide receiver 1 in fantasy type guys. It's Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown. So he's at that level in terms of the volume that he's getting, and then he's also by far the most involved guy in the red zone, and that's been the case throughout his career. It just hasn't mattered because the Falcons haven't got to the red zone very often. They haven't thrown in the red zone very often. This is a completely different regime and an offense that is getting to the red zone more often. I think people still might not realize how high the ceiling is for Drake London. And then the other thing is he's playing the Puka Nacua role. You guys have probably heard me talk about this. He's getting a lot more in-breaking routes. This is a good plug for Fantasy Points data. So they track how often receivers are getting separation on different types of routes, including horizontally breaking routes or vertically breaking routes or routes coming back to the ball. On horizontally breaking routes, Drake London has been really, really good throughout his career. He just hasn't been given the opportunity to run those types of routes very often. But this year, he's running literally the same percentage of those types of routes as Puka Nacua did last year. And we saw in this past game, finally, he got some yak on those plays, which makes sense because he's been breaking tackles on those plays. He gets more opportunities to break tackles on those types of plays. And yeah, I just want to bring up Fantasy Points data because they're going to be our guest this Thursday.
Cool.
On Beyond the Box Score. And then, Darnell Mooney, over the past month, 26% target per route run rate, 2.25 yards per run. So that's honestly like not far off of what Drake London is doing.
I'm amazed. I was just looking now. Kirk Cousins, his scramble rate is 1.4%, which is the second lowest in the NFL, behind ahead of only Matthew Stafford. It was 2.4% last year, but usually he was a guy that could move around. That's my only concern. It's like Kirk Cousins is a statue, and he still doesn't have a lot of velocity. It does, like on some of his throws, you can see, but it doesn't really bother me because London gets so many targets.
I think part of what they did to alleviate that, and it's going to work more at home than when they're on the road, but part of what they did to alleviate that is to run more no huddle, to run more up tempo and hurry up, because when you do that, you limit the defense's ability to blitz, and you limit the defense's ability to scheme, and you kind of get them into a vanilla look, which is helpful for Cousins because of, like you said, he can't scramble at this point. He doesn't want to move off his landmark. Even a lot of the throws he made in that game, like he just does such a good job of reaching his landmark in the pocket on his drop back and not really moving off it, just scanning the field within that one spot and then finding a way to get the ball out there while getting hit. It's so impressive to me. I find Cousins to be one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL by a wide margin. But I think he can support two players in this pass game. The London stuff's really interesting because if you watched him at USC, he was able to win on screens. He was able to win on quick hitches because of his ability after the catch. And it's great to see that he wasn't used like that at all with Arthur Smith. Now he is. And we're seeing somebody who can be a volume guy as well as a big play guy.
It's pretty much all him and Mooney. Mooney led the team in first three targets. Kyle Pitts played more this week. His route participation was up to 87%. That was second highest at tight end, so that's good. It was only 55% last week, but he's still not getting any first three targets. It's pretty much all designed to Mooney and London, with Ray McLeod sprinkled in here and there. I've got a few more if we've got time for it.
Yeah. We'll go a little faster here just so we don't have to rush on the four big topics, but go ahead, sir.
T. Higgins again led the Bengals in targets. And so over the past 2 weeks, T. Higgins has 24 targets for a 35% share and 234 air yards for a 48% share. The Bengals are throwing a ton and producing a lot of offense. And like, man, this is pretty impressive stuff from Higgins. I wouldn't have expected this, especially because Jamar is playing so well. But the offense early and often is just focused on Higgins. Dontavian Wicks, 28% target share, 43% air yardage share, both led the Packers. I know that you're frustrated. You probably spent a lot of fab on him and all that. Search my Twitter name with Dontavian Wicks. There was a lot of meat left on the bone. And part of that is Wicks dropping the ball. I get that. But man, the volume is there. This is a weird game where they went really run heavy and also just didn't produce a lot of plays overall. I think things could be a lot better on Wicks. I would not panic. I would not be dropping Dontavian Wicks. Okay.
But if Christian Watson comes back, I don't think he has much value. So he's not on IR. I don't know how many more weeks. And then you probably get, I don't know how many more weeks Watson's going to be. I probably get Dobbs back. I agree. I'm not dropping him either. Led the team in targets. Remember we talked about the drops though a week ago.
Yeah,
it reared their ugly head, but he can't keep dropping passes at this rate. It feels like it's statistically improbable. All right, I'm sorry.
We got to talk about Tyrone Tracy. 18 rushes, 129 yards.
Right?
Topic number 4.
Save that one.
Okay.
Because we got a lot to say on Tyrone Tracy. This was a early beyond the box score pick from 4 months ago.
So yeah, Tank Bigsby, just for fun, 51% avoided tackle rate. 51% of his touches, there's been an avoided tackle. That's obviously first in the NFL. 6.5 yards after contact per rush on his way to an average of 8 yards per carry. That's also first. So yeah, Dan, you already took your victory lap, but like, what is this real? Like, is Tank Bigsby just the most explosive back in the NFL? What's going on here?
He was so underrated in that running back class. You watched him at Auburn, and he had so many of these explosive runs where the burst is really the defining trait, and you could see it now with the Jaguars. I love that you talked about how they're using these two backs to what they're good at, like ETN with zone, Bigsby with the power gap, and they start to get it going with power gap. It's going to be more Bigsby because they're going to have more success with those kind of runs with this kind of offensive line, in my opinion, at least the Jaguars. So I think it can be real. I just don't think he's going to ultimately be like an RB1 or anything like that, splitting a backfield. But the splits that we've seen in the last 2 weeks, I think they'll stay that way.
And if ETN gets hurt, then yeah, he might be. But yeah, only a 41% snap rate, which is a career high. First time he ever outsnapped ETN, but it's not like he's playing a ton.
And Dave brought this up on last night's show. This is what Doug Peterson said after the game. He said, no, Travis is our guy. Tank had a good game. That's just the way games go. Happy for Tank. Great for the offensive line. Obviously, in some of those situations there. Travis is our guy. Tank had a good game today, though. And then he later went on to say, this is the second week in a row our O-line has played good as a unit. Listen, it's been the same 5 guys now, right? So when I say there's continuity keeping those 5 together, there's continuity and they start learning to play together, blah, blah, blah. So he likes the offensive line, and he's sticking, at least vocally, sticking with Travis Etienne. But I feel like his actions speak louder than his words.
Right.
And Bigsby is clearly cutting in, and Bigsby is being used near the goal line, and Bigsby is playing better. So,
and one thing to add, that's Coach Speak Index, which we've shouted out before, an amazing follow on Twitter, has Doug Peterson with a 35% trust.
Wow.
For what he did. It's one of the lowest of all the coaches.
Yeah.
So what he says has not really been what's actually happened more times than not.
okay. All right, let's take a
Last
break. Oh,
This-
yeah. Go ahead.
Segue here to DJ Moore and the 4 big topics. Caleb Williams, 4 for 4 with a 0% off target rate on passes that traveled 15 or more air yards. Thank God.
Yeah.
He had the worst rate through the first 4 weeks. It was like 55% of those throws had been off target. It had been crazy how bad it was.
Good for him. Yeah, he needed to turn things around, and he did. Was it because he played the worst defense, one of the worst defenses in football? Maybe, but obviously he just played better, had a really good game. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football today with some snap counts and our 4 big topics.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage,
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
along with breaking news,
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
highlights, and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
Well, I can't really be encouraged by Mark Andrews. I know he had a good game, 4 for 55 on 5 targets. He should have had a touchdown. There was a bit of a low throw. It caused him to get tackled at the 2. He played 55% of the snaps in a game where they threw the ball a ton, 42 pass attempts. Isaiah Likely played more snaps than him, 71% of snaps. Isaiah Likely ran 12 more routes than him. It was great that he had, 9.5 PPR fantasy points, but that's just weird. And it's
weird.
Every week now he's not playing that much. So I don't know what to say. Dalton Kincaid, after playing 84% of the snaps in week 1, he has not played more than 63% of the snaps in any game since week 1. He did lead the team in routes run in week 5, and he's 5th among 23 tight ends with 15 or more targets. Kincaid is 5th in target per route run rate, but he's 20th in routes run. He's like just not on the field enough.
Don't you have some stats on that, Jacob? Or maybe I saw it. Did I see you tweet anything on this? Was it somebody else?
No, I think Adam got it. The only thing I would add is that he had more air yards this week.
That's what I was gonna say.
He had not been used that way at all. He had more air yards this week than he had in the first month of the season.
And they were this close to connecting on a 71-yard touchdown. Would have flipped the entire box score for Kincaid, changed our whole perspective on him. I don't think he's going to be what I hoped he would be when I drafted him this offseason, which was funnel the offense through him, run the offense through him. It doesn't look like that has any chance of happening. I think he's more of just kind of what we have at this tight end position. He'll make some big plays occasionally, and it's not going to be a volume-based thing.
Okay, and Breece Hall played 75% of the snaps, so he still has a good role. Daria Gumbawale played 68% of the snaps. Cam Akers played 32% of the snaps. Gumbawale was so much better than Akers. Hopefully, we don't have to have this discussion at all, and Mixon is back soon. But Ogunbowale had 15 carries. Akers had 9. It's just he was the starting running back, basically, Daria Ogunbowale. I already mentioned Xavier Hutchinson played more snaps than Tank Dell. I mentioned the Christian Kirk thing. If you believe in Drake May, you should know that Jalen Polk played every snap. I think you mentioned that last week, Jacob, that Jalen Polk was on the field a ton. He played every snap for the Patriots. No other wide receiver played more than 2/3 of the snaps. And Brian Robinson Jr. played only 34% of the snaps. I think that's score related, but also probably injury related. So he scored 2 touchdowns. Didn't have a great game otherwise, but you got those touchdowns and just weird snap count for him. Probably
He had like a 55% snap rate in the first half. It was like 55-45 him and Eckler.
All right, and then here's the segment. I watched the Miami-New England game. You're welcome. I just wanted to see what Jalen Wright looked like, and he looked really good. It's another one that I don't really think is going to matter. I don't think you're going to pick up Jalen Wright because I assume Achane will be back after their bye. But I'm pretty sure Wright played, 1 carry before Achane got hurt. So I think they used all 3 of them. And this could be a problem for Achane because Wright looked really good. I saw Jacob tweeting about how Achane was more successful in a different blocking scheme, and they haven't used him as much in that scheme this year. And Achane just hasn't run the ball that effectively. So I I don't know if Jalen Wright's going to be a problem, but he really did play very well. And he was in it at the goal line when they scored their go-ahead touchdown against the Patriots. And the last thing is Christian Gonzalez is awesome. I didn't watch the all 22. I just watched the game on the condensed replay. And he shadowed Tyreek Hill. And you can't shadow Tyreek Hill. Like L'Jarius Sneed got burned by Tyreek Hill. The throws were bad. But Christian Gonzalez, I think, is going to turn into a real fantasy eraser if he isn't there already.
I didn't see the tape on that. Can I ask you a quick question? What from what you saw from Dolphins offense against Patriots defense, what kind of depth did the Patriots play at? Because I feel like the biggest issue for the Dolphins in fantasy going forward is that teams are aligning and playing them completely different now without Tua in the game. And I just think that's not going to change, and it's going to derail the entire run game.
I don't know. I can't.
Okay.
I don't know, but I think Tua is only going to miss one more game.
What do you mean? There's no guarantees coming back.
No, it sounds like they seem optimistic that.
Oh, really?
Back. Yeah. After week 7, because they have a week 6 bye.
I didn't not see that. I missed that report.
Just something I read from one of their reporters saying like the Dolphins could win their next 2 games and be 3-3 with Tua coming back in week 8 or something like that. So that's kind of the way I've been operating. But you're right. Obviously, he's everything. But I don't have an answer for you on that. Sorry. All right. Here's 4 big topics. Let's start with Berlin. It's time to start a dialogue on the Buffalo Bills' woes on offense. I understand Josh Allen might have had a concussion, but they were playing subpar before that. All right, who wants the first word?
You can grab it, Jacob.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing back-to-back weeks. If the offense isn't able to run through James Cook and they get where they're not able to play with the lead and control the game the way Joe Brady wants to, then it gets off track pretty quickly. They try to design some stuff to Kincaid early, and the timing was just a little bit off. There's way too much Matt Collins for my liking. Obviously, he helps a lot as a blocker, but then when they do get where they have to air it out a little bit more, he's still on the field, I think, because they don't want it to be just super predictable tell, like, oh, we're throwing now because Matt Collins is off the field. And he just doesn't contribute hardly anything as a receiver. When you have him and or Marquez Valdes-Scantling out there, you're trotting out like the worst pass catching personnel in the entire NFL. And so that's really tough. I was hoping to see Curtis Samuel get more involved here, but we didn't really see that either. It was a ton of Matt Collins, and it's just like, that's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, on my end, I just feel like this was a bit what I expected going into this year. I wasn't as high on Joe Brady as the rest of people were. I watched that offense last year. I felt like it worked for that stretch. I didn't know if it was going to carry over. It was very run heavy based in the run game. Didn't like much of what I saw from him from a passing concept standpoint. If you look at 3 weeks ago, Adam and Jacob, where Josh Allen had that monster game and everyone's talking about him as MVP, the team he faced Jaguars played an insane amount of man coverage. And if you look at the splits in Josh Allen's career against man coverage versus zone coverage, they're unbelievable. They're like, you won't even believe the difference between how much better he performs against man. Most teams are going to play zone. So these receivers not play. He has no rapport with them really. There's some big plays from Coleman here and there, but what did he have? 1 or 2 targets this game? There's obviously no consistency there, no rapport with really anyone on the field except for Shakir, who missed the game. Yeah, 5 targets by the end of it, but like no real rapport.
Yeah, 1 catch. He had that 49-yard touchdown.
Sure. So I just don't think that he's really on the same page with these receivers yet. I don't know if it will happen. I personally think Joe Brady should have worked in the offseason this offense to run through Kincaid. I think it would have changed a lot in the pass game, but he's not a big part of their pass game, despite being their best receiver on the field and the only one with an actual rapport with Josh Allen outside of Shakir. So I don't know. I don't really foresee this getting that much better, but I think they'll have games where they can run the football, like Jacob said, and then hit big play action shots. I think it's that kind of offense.
So, yeah, you just heard the way this question was framed and the answers were given. And if you didn't know better, well, I shouldn't say it like that. It sounds like you guys are wrong. But you'd think that the Bills had a bad offense. They are 5th in scoring.
Yeah.
And through the first 3 weeks, they were 1st in scoring. They've scored 30 points in their last 2 games against the Ravens and the Texans. They have struggled in the last 2 games. So it looks bad. It looked a lot better in the first part of the season, and I think, or the first 3 games. And I think James Cook, as Jacob was kind of saying, is a big part of that. Like, he got off that huge start. He had a good game here, but look, Josh Allen missed Kincaid on a deep ball. He missed Matt Collins on, I think, would have been a 59-yard touchdown. Hollins was open. Allen played horribly. He just, what was he, 9 of 30? 9 of 30.
Right.
Now, I watched, I'm sure you guys watched too. I watched some of the all 22. Like, guys weren't really like wide open or anything like that, but still, he just didn't play well. But I don't know what to make of it because, again, they are 5th in scoring. They're 19th in yards per play, though, and that might be a little bit more telling. Although in the first 3 games, they were 4th in yards per play. So the only thing that really matters is this. Everyone's starting James Cook pretty much every week. I still think you're going to start Kincaid.
Yeah.
Because just, he's Kincaid and it's tight end. And then there's Allen. How many quarterbacks would you take over Josh Allen rest of season?
Lamar is the one that comes to mind as the first guy, actually, for me. I think Lamar is somebody I should add more exposure to this season. I'm really disappointed in myself for not seeing that one, but it would be Lamar for sure. After Lamar,
Jalen Hurts. You might not be on top of your mind because he was on a bye, but it's got to be Jalen Hurts, right?
Yeah, I guess. Assuming, Brown will come back and Devontae Smith will come back, I guess, with Jalen Hurts. So I'm fine putting Hurts in there too. After those two,
Jaden Daniels?
Maybe Jaden Daniels. Yeah, right. I think Jaden Daniels probably belongs in that too at this point. But after those 3, you're starting
Joe Burrow?
Wow, we got to a 4th very easily with Joe Burrow. So I'm clearly not on top of my game right now because I'll
Baker Mayfield?
No.
He's
Now we've cut it off. But I would take those 4 over him.
Okay. I don't know that I'd take Burrow over him.
I love the way that Bengals pass game looks right now.
I mean, I definitely take Jackson and Hurts over Allen.
The Bengals pass defense is also just so bad. I saw a stat today. The Bengals offensive EPA is like the best of any team in the last decade. And then their defensive EPA is like the worst of any team in the last decade. So it's like this game script is perfect for Joe Burrow in fantasy.
The Bills also don't really have a great schedule coming up. Jets, Titans, Seahawks, Dolphins. All right. So
all those games feel nasty, low scoring too, don't they?
Possibly. Let's go to a game. Let's go to a team that does have a good schedule, a very good schedule coming up. DJ Moore. The question is DJ Moore a top 20 wide receiver? Well, for the season, he is actually 20th per game. So the answer right now is yes. Will he be going forward? Well, here is all right. Things change a lot when you look at schedules 5 games in, teams are going to perform differently, but just looking at DJ Moore's schedule right now, not counting week 18, DJ Moore has 11 games remaining. 8 of those 11 are against teams that currently rank 22nd or worse against opposing wide receivers. 6 of the 11 are against teams that currently rank 27th or worse. So DJ Moore has a beautiful schedule. Caleb Williams has a great schedule. Jacob, do you think DJ Moore is a top 20 wide receiver rest of season?
Yeah, DJ Moore is the wide receiver 7 since the start of 2023. He obviously has a little bit more target competition this year, but still dominated the volume this week. I think talk about like meat left on the bone. There's been a ton with DJ Moore and Caleb Williams. They've really struggled to have their chemistry down, but I think we're seeing that improve. He is wide receiver 14 in target share on the year. I feel pretty easy that he's a top 20. Yeah,
I think so too.
He's locked for me.
Yeah, things had to get better for him. Like he was open. He did big plays that weren't being made. It's really just a matter of Caleb Williams. I guess my other concern, Dan, is like right now Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze are doing nothing. Does that change?
I think this is going to run through more. Their rapport's only going to improve. I think we saw the touchdown with DJ Moore and Caleb Williams on that play. I mean, that's different than what we've seen from Caleb all year. The play is designed to the front side for Keenan Allen. It's drawn up perfectly. And I mean, it's defended perfectly. It's not there. And Caleb has a good understanding of where Moore is going to be within the route, flips his hips back and lets the ball rip, hits him in stride on the money in the end zone touchdown. We're going to see more of that. I just think they need to build a rapport and Caleb needs to get better as a quarterback. Those things are almost a guarantee to happen with more reps. I feel like at least, but they won't face Carolina every week. We know that.
Carolina's actually been kind of tough against wide receiver 1s. I just think Moore is really good and Caleb has potential to be really good.
Yeah. My issue with the Carolina is not that they've been bad at taking away wide receiver 1s. It's just that, and you could correct me if I'm wrong on this, their pressure rate and just that front that they have, it's on paper one of the worst looking I've seen in the NFL. And that's my big issue with Chicago. Like this offensive line, I think has really sped things up for Caleb a little bit before this week and made him force some throws earlier than he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next question is from Check Me 2 Times. What value does Nick Chubb have? Hopefully coming back this week. I don't know if that's going to happen, but soon, let's say. What value does Nick Chubb have, Jacob?
I think he will take on in time, if he's healthy, take on a pretty large role in early down situations. It seems like the Browns have really kind of tried to mix in other guys other than Jerome Ford, and they want him to be more of like the passing downs guy, which Ford has played really well. He's been really, really efficient as a rusher, but part of that is that his runs are almost exclusively coming into light boxes. They're really not treating him as the early down guy. So I think that there's potential. It's the thing is, like, who knows what the heck is going to happen with this offense? Like, if it's Jameis, that looks completely different. Yeah, they're playing fast and producing plays, but they're also really pass heavy. I just don't really have any idea what it's going to look like with him in and with Jameis potentially in.
I think there's been such a disconnect here between ownership and the coach, Kevin Stefanski. And part of that is because Chubb's been injured. If Chubb was in the lineup, I think the coach would win out. But they've tried, or I shouldn't say ownership, their regime has tried to make this a big-time pass-first offense with Deshaun Watson and the weapons they added at receiver. It just doesn't work, straight up. For whatever reason, there's been injuries on the O-line. Watson has lost his touch. When Chubb comes back, I think Stefanski's at the point where he's lost enough games where he's going to be like, I don't really care what the ownership wants. We're going back to the old offense that operates through Nick Chubb and play action from under center with the quarterback. I think Watson could actually be a better quarterback in that system personally than what he is now, which is not saying much because he's horrible in this pass-first offense and he's too small. And I just think he doesn't deal with pressure well anymore. But if they turn to Jameis, I still think they'll go through Nick Chubb in the running game. They have to try to win football games, and that's how they used to win. So I think it becomes his offense again. It's just a matter of like, how healthy is he and how healthy is that offensive line?
Major knee injury, not just a torn ACL, major knee injury, multiple surgeries. Offensive line, their center just got hurt. They're playing without their right tackle, I believe, or maybe their left tackle. I forget which one came back, if it was Wills or Conklin. But I said this to Heath on FFT Express, I think it was. They could have a fully healthy offensive line in a month, or in 3 weeks or something like that. And then, we don't have to play it week by week, but because I have a feeling Chubb's going to be a little bit limited when he first comes back. But second half of the season, it could be good. I don't know how good he's going to be. This team is 31st in run rate, first of all. Like Dan, you were saying, they don't run as much. They have the second lowest run rate in football.
Wow.
They are 30th in points per game, ahead of only Miami and New England. 30th in pressure rate allowed. PFF has them as 28th in run blocking and 30th in pass blocking. And they have this isn't necessarily relevant to Nick Chubb, 2 straight games without a 20-yard completion. And they are absolutely horrible offensively. Does Nick Chubb change that? I don't know. If he were truly Nick Chubb, then I'd probably be all about it.
It's possible that this offense is just dead in the water. Like, Washington is not a good defense from a talent standpoint. Yes, like, Dan Quinn has done a good job figuring out how to maximize what they have there. But to not be able to move the ball against that defense was eye-opening.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the last straw. You can never you'd have to see so much before you even considered streaming Deshaun Watson in any matchup.
No.
Would you rather have Nick Chubb or Najee Harris?
Nick Chubb. I mean, I might as well take the shot.
Side, right? Yeah.
And
Nick
honestly,
Chubb or Zach Charbonnet?
Chubb.
I think it's Chubb just from the
Rashad
upside.
White.
White still.
Yeah, I guess.
Slightly.
Yeah. But
White had that 56-yard run this past week, and it was like, hell yes, White can do it. And it's like, kind of seemed like an insanely big hole, and then he did not look that explosive in the open field to me. But like,
I just saw such a funny tweet, like Rashad White runs like something. I can't remember what it was. Like my kid, like running. He like ran like a kid.
The guy. I hate to knock the guy, but
no, it's just he had a funny running style. Nick Chubb or Tony Pollard is a question we have in the chat.
Pollard for sure.
Pollard.
Yeah. All right. Last topic is we saved the best for last.
Yeah.
From Steve Smith, not the former Giant or Panther or some guy. I know a guy named Steve Smith. It's not from him either. Tyrone Tracy. That is the topic. Tyrone Tracy. 41% roster, 21% started, 18 carries, 129 yards, 1 catch for 1 yard at Seattle. Gets the Cincinnati Bengals and their bad run defense in week 6 on Sunday night with Dan in attendance wearing his Eli Manning Snuggie. You know, you
did by then.
You just wear a sweatshirt over it.
That's what I'm thinking. The sweatshirt over it, yeah. Or this over the sweatshirt.
Under it, yeah, my bad. Sweatshirt under it, you'll be fine.
It's the move.
Anyway, I think a couple things here. Eric Gray had 3 carries on the first possession, and then he fumbled, and he got 1 carry. I don't think he fumbled. I think he scored, but got 1 carry for the rest of the game. Eric Gray also served as the 3rd down back, so obviously they didn't want to put too much on Tracy's plate. And then, of course, there's Devin Singletary, who maybe could be back next week. So, Dan, what do you think about Tyrone Tracy rest of season?
I don't see how there's any way the Giants can put this, move this back to how they divvied up the touches in weeks 1 to 4. Tracy was unbelievable in his debut. There's no other way to say it. He was the leading NFL rusher this week. First of all, he was their first 100-yard rusher of the season for the Giants. A lot of these runs he created on his own with his vision and his ability to cut back and his ability to press the hole to force the linebacker to commit and then bounce it outside with a jump cut. Unbelievable stuff. I mean, we're looking at some of these runs. He closed the game out here with runs of 4+ on all but one of his last 7 carries. That included a 13-yard run. He was the closer for them. I think that's a role that he will continue to play in. He bounced outside on a trap concept where he planted and drive for 7-8 yards. This should have been a 1-yard run, but his vision was able to get that. I think that's what everybody kind of saw when they watched him, and it was confirmed by the tape that a lot of people said it was kind of like the Le'Veon Bell running style. I don't want to go that far. He was one of a kind, but it is that idea of like the patience behind the line of scrimmage and that ability to process and set up where the linebacker is going to go and then take a different gap. And that's not to say that Devin Singletary hasn't played well, but Devin Singletary doesn't have the contact balance, or I'm sorry, the power after the contact balance. And quite frankly, the vision or explosiveness that Tyrone Tracy has. I think he should be the starter moving forward. If I was operating this team with Singletary and more of a 40%, Tracy in a 60%, I can't see it going any higher than that. I think the best case scenario is he leads the split here. So I don't want to go too crazy, but he's a playmaker, and they're only going to find different ways to get in the football. And just one final thing I'll say before turning it over to Jacob. In 2022, the Giants leaned heavily, or more heavily than most teams, on the pony package, which brought both Breida and Barkley on the field. I think we'll see that moving forward with Tracy getting some snaps in that way too. Just an added way to get him touches, use him as the motion man. They still haven't really tapped into his ability as a receiver yet either. He's a converted wide receiver from Iowa. That's something I know Dable has in mind for the rest of season because we saw it a little bit in camp. So there's just ways to get him the football. I view him as the second best playmaker on the entire offense, and I think that's pretty clear on tape. So with that in mind, I think the Giants will have to get him on the field.
Jacob?
Yeah, I was really hoping to see him more involved as a receiver. He had a 41% route participation in this. You said he wasn't playing on 3rd downs. Seemed like they were kind of intentional about not letting him play the important plays. He had a 46% red zone snap rate. That was down from 62% overall. Inside the 10, he only played 29% of the snaps. So that is interesting to me. I think it's clear that they'll trust Singletary over him for important situations. But yeah, I agree that he's one of the best playmakers on the team, and they'll hopefully continue to get him more involved. I thought it was interesting that True Media has him charted with only 3 avoided tackles on the year, which I feel like is just wrong after watching him.
That can't be right.
Yeah, I think the thing is when you like manipulate space and defenders, they don't give you necessarily like an avoided tackle. There wasn't any contact or anything like that. And I think that's something he does really well. But yeah, like Singletary's been piling up crazy avoided tackle rates because of this man-blocked scheme. It sets up a lot of opportunities for just one-on-ones for him. And so I was hoping we'd see that from Tracy because he had really wild rates in college. But it hasn't been much of that. But I do think he's making people miss. I loved what I saw from him. And then, yeah, the only other thing I would throw in there is that he gained positive yardage on every single carry, which makes him the only running back in a game this year to gain positive yards on every carry with 15 or more carries. Any running back, any game all year.
Wow. That's impressive. All right, we like him.
Crazy. Yep. Just going to say one thing that take a look at Jacob's page, and then you could look at Doug Analytics. He has some unbelievable analytics on Tracy's performance, rushing yards over expected, things like that. Really just a phenomenal individual performance this week.
All right. I'm going to end things with an email.
Nice.
It's calling out Dan for help. And it's from a guy named Dan. And he says he's going to the Houston at New York Jets game.
Okay.
And he said to me, I wonder if you or Dan had any recommendations on things to do, eateries, etc. What do you think? What's your advice to someone going to New York?
I actually say, well, first of all, the game will be in East Rutherford, New Jersey.
But he's not going to spend any time in the sister state.
I don't know about that. He didn't say I'm staying in New York, did he?
Obviously, he's not asking me for, what are the good places in like a strip mall in New Jersey. He obviously wants to go to New York.
All right. So here's what I got for you in New York. Definitely hit one of these following 3 places. L'Industrie, and these are all for pizza. L'Industrie, that'll be if you venture out to Brooklyn, but I think they have a Lower East Side location now. John's of Bleecker, or my personal favorite, DeFara, which is also another Brooklyn if you venture out there. So definitely hit that. Los Tacos, if you want tacos. I think they're some of the best in the city. So now we've hit tacos, we've hit pizza. I'll probably leave it at that because you don't have that much more time. But if you want the best old school burger where it's not no frills on the burger, it's not like a pat, they put the stamp on the bun, they dress it up with 72 condiments. It's just a burger with cheese. JG Mellon's on the Upper East Side. Is the best burger in the city for the no frills burger. You're just relying on the taste of the patty, and they have the best patty. And it is a must go for any New Yorker. So I've given you 3 spots there. But if you do venture into New Jersey, make sure you go to Hoboken and make sure you go to what I consider to be the best Italian deli in the world. Let me think about that. If I would consider it the best, I mean, there are others.
You've been to many places around the world.
No, I haven't been to that many places. But actually, I'm going to leave that one off. I've given 3 suggestions. That one you'll have to come hit me in the comments, and I'll give you that one. That's more of a. I don't want people blowing this place up. It's already blown up enough. But yeah, I got 3 good spots for you, and that's what we got.
Yeah, I love the JG Mellon call. I used to live by there, and I'm like very happy that you said that. Good for you. I always love Patsy's Pizza. I haven't had it in like 15 years, but Patsy's is great. And Meatball Shop. Anybody, if you love meat, like you don't even have to love meat.
It's really good.
Meatball Shop is great. It's so good. Good lunch place. Enjoy New York City. That's the only thing I can recommend in New York City. I've never done anything fun in New York City. I've just eaten good food. Like I haven't done any of the touristy stuff. I don't like museums. I went to one of the museums, had the most boring, worst time ever. So like, I'm not the guy to ask for activities. Central Park is great, but it's probably going to be too cold. And by the way, I love New Jersey. I was just giving Dan a hard time.
If you could see a concert at Pier 17 in one of your nights, do that because that's just unbelievable venue.
And we had a comment earlier that says Dan Schneider looks like the kind of guy that wears the T-shirt of the band he goes to see in concert.
That is not true. But I'll say this, and I'll leave it on this. While that's not true, because at one point my brother said that was a lame thing to do. Not that I ever did it, but he just mentioned it. I think you should be. I don't like that idea of like yucking someone else's yum. Who cares if somebody wants to wear the concert of the band they're going to? That's like this lame, like it's like you don't wear white past Labor Day, or you just can't do it. You just can't wear the band of the concert you go to.
You're a classy yucker. I'm not going to listen to this
that is true. That is very true.
All right, we're out of here, folks. We'll talk to you tomorrow with the waiver wire. Have a good day, everybody.